G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm interviewing Ute Preusse from Will, based in Vancouver, Canada. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Let's start with how we know each other. We've been using LinkedIn to reach out to some business owners around the world, particularly females, because we've got a mandate to keep the cast 50-50, male-female. So really appreciate your time coming on today.
Excellent. And thank you for doing your part in that equalization of the world. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. And we actually have to do outreach specifically because not just proportionally, there's less small business owners that are female. It's about 36% in Australia, but also I've found that a lot of female owners are less likely to want to talk about their business than male owners. So we have to be quite proactive to find more female-led businesses.
Interesting.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, okay. So we're based out of Vancouver, Canada, but our clients are significantly more far-reaching, whether it's down south into the US or even way beyond with the sort of global presence. We're a branding, design, and marketing firm. We'll get into numbers later, but we're 30 full-time people made up of what you'd expect from strategists to project managers to the creatives, so writers, art directors, designers, and then obviously producers. And what we do is our focus lies on creating brands with a really strong sense of strategic purpose, coupled with a really strong sense of emotional connection. Mm-hmm. And we will do that for brands where we completely, so brand new brands. So we help position them in the market and then help reposition those that need to rebrand, or those that actually have a strong market in place. We just help amplify that brand. So through various amounts of advertising or varying degrees of marketing. That's what we do.
Right. Yeah, it's a really important part of business, as you well know, and really hard to get right. So finding the right agency to partner with to get the positioning right and refocusing the brand is hugely important. I really undervalued marketing and brand at the start of my career 22 years ago, but I've come to value it highly.
Absolutely, because it's actually, a brand isn't just a marketing tool, it's a business tool, right? It creates that roadmap of how you think, look and feel, and really importantly, how you act.
Yes.
And the entire organization can have a very simple blueprint and a roadmap how to do that, then it's not just marketing building the reputation of the brand, it's every single business unit that's doing that, right? Yep. And hence, you can imagine just how much it amplifies the marketing efforts. But you have to keep that notion of branding super simple and super human so that it doesn't become marketing jargon and vernacular that only those in the marketing or communications department understand, right? And I think that's where our skill lies, is we really just bring it down to a very simple, why does the brand exist? What does it uniquely offer? How do we uniquely deliver it in everything that we do? And as a result, how will we be described? And making sure that that resultant reputation is directly correlating to audience needs and wants out there. So very logical and empowering setup for any brand to have.
Yep, great. How did you start out?
Well, in terms of my own personal career, I was always attracted to the idea of marketing. And for me personally, my career was very fortunate. Started in Germany at Adidas at the headquarters, or Adidas, not sure how you guys refer to it. I was very lucky to be a brand manager there for 4 years. And then after 4 years, had the itch to move closer to the creative side of things. And then decided if I was going to do that, I might as well go to one of the capitals of the world who does this. So I moved to London and I joined a branding and retail agency called Fitch. They're global. And that was my schooling in terms of the power of brands and just the excellence in design work and the power that that can have for brands. And then on the back of that, actually, that's when I met my business partner, and we've since worked together. So we've worked for a very long time together. And we did a brief stint consulting in the Middle East for the Asian Games over there, and then helped that company, which was actually a Canadian company, pitch the Beijing Olympics, FIFA World Cup in South Africa, the Guangzhou Asian Games and the Vancouver Winter Olympics. And after that stint, we kind of decided, well, what are we going to do next? And let's just say at the time, it was Nick, my business partner's snowboard that brought us to Vancouver.
Yep.
And we joined a great agency, a fully integrated marketing firm called Cassette. We joined them, and there we were in the VP positions for 7 years. And then it was actually 7 years ago that we had a long, hard think and kind of went like, what is it that we actually want to do with this skill set that we have? And it was what drove us to start Will was a drive for authenticity, one where we could really focus in on the things that we're very good at doing. And ultimately, I think the way you filter out what you're good at doing is by asking yourself, what do you love doing?
Yep. And
we realized that we didn't love talking, delivering, and trying to sell the things that we're not excellent at. And the idea of being part of a fully integrated marketing firm to us just didn't feel authentic, because you can't be great at everything. So we did identify our understanding of branding and the amplification of that branding as our real skill set, and started Will, and decided to just honestly and transparently focus on that. And for everything else that we don't love doing and aren't really excited about and excellent at, we bring in others that are superb at those skills, like media planning and buying and PR, for example. And we just thought that that was a more authentic approach.
Yep.
And even the way in how we continue to build Will is that we innovate in the areas that we love. So we don't just stick to what we do and that just becomes the status quo. We obviously do want to embrace the unknown, but within the realm that excites us, because then we know we're going to be really good about it, right? So that's sort of our philosophy. And so I would say it was a very organic way of growing and staying true to what we're passionate about. And the moment in our gut we felt that this notion of big agency integrated just didn't feel right to us,
yep,
and that we could do something in a better way, that's when we kind of built up the courage to go and do that.
Yeah.
And that was 7 years ago.
Wow. I read an article last week on Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, so LVMH, one of the biggest, fashion conglomerates in the world. So I think they did over €8 billion last year. But I remember reading the article, I was blown away. Their EBITDA, or their net profit, was something like 60 or 65%. And that just smacks of the power of brand and how they've nailed all their brands and their marketing. For them to have such an audacious bottom line is phenomenal. That's not gross profit, that was net profit.
Yeah, phenomenal. Absolutely. Can't be underestimated, for sure.
2014, how old were you when you decided to start the business?
I think I saw you ask that question, and I'm so not age oriented. I don't mind sharing my age at all. I'm 47 now, so I must have been 39.
Yep. Great.
Yeah.
And some key numbers on the growth. So was it just you and Nick that started, or you had other team members?
Yeah. No, it was just the two of us that started. So that was in 2014. And then towards the end, that was September of 2014. And then we hired, in that latter part of the first year, we hired 2 key people.
Yep.
And Nick and I have that typical story of sitting together at a wine bar, and it's true, with the napkin, as cliched as it sounds, yep, and just mapped out the phenomenal people we've worked with in the past. And if we could wave a magic wand, who we would love on the team. And we literally went down that list. Yep. And actually, we couldn't approach all of the people because of
non-competes.
Exactly. We had some compete clauses, but we were just super fortunate that they actually approached us and that they were excited with the idea of it. Yep. So we hired a couple of people at the end of 2014, and then had steady growth in terms of from just Nick and I, 2 people, to now being 30 full-time. Yep. And we at all times have around 5 to 10 contractors or freelancers that just allow us to be a little bit agile. But yeah, we've been very fortunate in being able to experience that growth in people. And obviously that comes with a certain growth in revenue that can accommodate the people. Yeah.
That's a really smart way to build your dream team. Write down who you've worked with in the past that you just had a really good connection with, and start building the team. That's really smart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what about top line growth over the 14 years?
So we have year after year always experienced double-digit growth.
Yep.
We've now moved from tax purposes from a small business into a medium business. Wish we could have stayed small business with those, with those taxes.
Well, it's a good thing to pay tax. It means you're doing very well.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. That's absolutely our obligation. So we're now deemed here in Canada as a medium-sized business. Yep. And we've always experienced double-digit growth. Apart from in 2019, where there was a bit of a slump here in Canada, many agencies had to actually let some staff go. It's critically important for us, and I'll talk a little bit in your questions further on about our values. Yep. We completely family first, like fiercely family. So for us to retain staff is always the most important thing. And we were very fortunate in terms of not having to let go anybody in 2019, whereas most agencies did.
What did you do? Sorry, on that. I've heard of people, I read something the other day, I think it was Hewlett Packard, the big tech company, a lot of booms and busts over the decades they've been existing, but they, Bill and David, the founders had this philosophy, exactly, family first, look after your team. So in those recessions and those bad times, what they did is they asked their team to work a 9-day fortnight, instead of a 10-day fortnight. So everyone dropped a day to be able to make it through those times, and they never lost a person in that time. What tactics did you have to employ? Anything to help?
We did actually think about that if it would have come to that, but we were fortunate that it didn't. And what it came to for us was we own this company fully, so we can just drop margins. Mm-hmm. Right? We do not need to have the same profit margin. Yep. And Nick and I can always take home less at the end of the day, right? And that's more where the investment came from. So although we're always, try to aim for that, 10 to 15, sometimes, if it's a very fortunate year, like we'll talk about the COVID year, no doubt, where, expenses did drop, where you take home more than that. But we can fall below that number. There's nobody telling us to always have, double-digit profit margins. So we were able to do that, but we still ran Will profitably. Yep. We just didn't run it as profitably. And that was 100% just where we thought that's the investment. And I'm so grateful we didn't lay anybody off and we didn't rush to doing any of that at the beginning of COVID, because we needed these people, because COVID was a year where we experienced 30% growth in 2020.
Yeah, I was going to say that philosophy or that approach you had of just taking less profit so you can keep the team members sounds altruistic, which it is, but it's also very smart from a business point of view, because exactly what you just said, you've then ramped back up. So if you had to drop people, and especially if they're good or great people, having to replace them or find them, they've probably moved on, they can't come back. So then you've got all the costs of retraining, let alone hiring, and you've also got recruitment risk in case you hire a dickhead, and you've got to move them on, So that's very smart to hold on to your team on many levels.
And for sure, and particularly in our industry, it's all about the talent. Yep. Right? To have the smartest thinkers, the most creative, bold, ambitious thinkers and executors, right? Particularly on the strategic, creative front, and those who can manage jobs incredibly well and have a great rapport with clients. That's talent. Yep. And we put so much effort into finding the right people for Will, not just on the talent front, but very important to us in terms of cultural fit, that feel that same sense of family. And Nick and I have to put our money where our mouths are. We can't say we're fiercely family and then go and, let people go. Yeah, that's not how it works, right? Because we have to live our values. Yeah. And really importantly for us is our team is so incredibly talented, and them working with us is invaluable. So we have to respect that above all else.
Yeah. When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
Oh, I need to continuously feel those moments. It's not a one-off. The first 2-3 years were incredibly hard, right? Building systems, finding a certain amount of confidence. I would say the first real moment of success was, we were very fortunate in landing a big retainer client here in Canada, a national client at the beginning of our Will endeavor. And after a while, we realized that we have a certain philosophy, and that clients select us, but we equally select the clients. And one thing that we never did while we were at big agency was you take on all the clients because you've got to bring in as much money as possible to keep this big ship afloat. and you had no choice in terms of really who you want to work with. And Nick and I put this little model together where we said our clients need to have two of three things. Either a great creative canvas for us to work with so that we can really flex our muscles on that front. A great client relationship, as in great people, or good money.
Yep.
You don't need all three of them, but you need at least two of them. And if the only thing is good money, then it's not why we exist.
Yep.
And in this case, where we came to with this client, although they were good people, the focus on money was too large and the creative canvas wasn't exactly where we needed to be. And it was a very fear-based brand. And that did not bring satisfaction into the team. And we realized that we are going to lose team members if we don't either change this account or get rid of it.
Yep.
And in our efforts to change it, we just realized that that's not the influence we can exercise. It wasn't our role to do. And there was less flexibility on the client side of things, which is absolutely their prerogative. So we met with them in a very respectful manner, decided to, let's terminate the relationship here. That was incredibly scary because that was $1 million a year.
Yeah. Yep.
Retainer, guaranteed. And I think the moment I felt like we'd succeeded, where we didn't have to get rid of anybody, and this was in year 2 or 3, I don't quite recall, but we completely replaced that revenue within 6 months.
Wow.
And then I kind of went like, okay, we can do this.
Yep.
And then the second big validation came in terms of this is a success is when COVID hit and we all had to start working from home. And thankfully, we were already set up to do so efficiently because people always had the option of doing work from home if they needed some quiet time. And where it hit for me was I couldn't be involved in all of the details, had to let go of my control freak nature and realized that how people stepped up and how they naturally empowered themselves, that somehow along the way, we've done something right and there's a way of doing things. And it just naturally flowed. And it's been the most liberating experience for me because even as we're now supposedly getting out of COVID, I'm not too sure we are, but supposedly, I'm now seeing that I will never go back to being as caught up in the details. And, I'm not going to say that I lack trust because I did actually, if I'm completely honest.
Yep.
I did feel I needed to have my fingers in the pie. And these people have now proven I can keep the fingers out completely. Yep. I do a phenomenal job. And that to me is probably when I realized we really, truly have succeeded because these people are now really running well as opposed to Nick and I.
Yeah. What does success look like to you?
Success in the short term, medium term, long term. I think in the short term, definitely looked into let's build something that can make sure creates careers for a number of us. I think in the medium term, it means how can we keep innovating and keep inspiring the courage to change our ways and put out better work. And in the long term, it means legacy so that this exists beyond Nick and I, and a team can actually take it on and run it with the same intent that was there, but a morphed intent because it should become theirs. And I'm infinitely proud of the fact that Will has, for the last 7 years, allowed good people to express their thinking, their creativity, but help them pay their mortgages and build their lives.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really proud of, is the fact that we are able to help people like our Will team and obviously our clients and do phenomenal work and see them grow and make them shine. But mainly success looks like Will is allowing people to live their best work lives and ultimately influence their personal lives.
Great. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Well, if it's not the way we market ourselves, as I said to you on our little pre-call here, we actually do none of that. If you visit our website, you'll see it's a one-pager.
One page, yeah. Don't they say the worst car in the mechanic shops is the mechanic? So yeah,
exactly. The cobbler's son has no shoes, right? Yep. But it's precisely that. But for us, I would say the best way to market yourself as a fast-growing company is stick to what is the original thing that has made you good. And what is it that will continue to generate you that income? For us, it's work that works and the word of mouth that comes with that. And then, of course, we supplement that with sharing our work through our social channels.
Yep.
That's us on the agency side of things. For every client, it's really important to understand what's your core purpose.
Yep.
What within that promise are you exceptionally good at doing that? Reinforce that and amplify that.
Yes.
Everything else beyond that is just noise.
Yes.
So just be incredibly focused in your marketing to focus on the thing that you do really, really well, because that in turn will make sure you're spoken about. And that's the thing you can become famous for.
Yeah. And how did you fund your business?
Well, Nick and I took it all on personally. So we did negotiate an exit with our previous agency. So that made sure we personally had an income to go for a few months. And then it was just a matter of changing our billing system, actually. So not just doing progress billing at the end of the month, but introducing that we bill upfront 50%.
Yeah.
So that we could keep the cash flow going. And our clients were surprisingly really receptive to that, because then they also felt a little fire underneath them to get the projects going and to really keep going with it. And then progress bill after the halfway mark on a monthly basis. But so we essentially just created our own little funding model by means of asking our clients to, pay upfront. Not fully. We realized that was too much of a stretch, but 50% upfront. And we continue to do it to this day on all of our projects.
Yeah. I remember one of my early companies, we had that same conversation. We were changing the payment terms, and, we're all saying, no, the clients won't accept it. And then I think it was our accountant at the same time said, you need to put your prices up. But he said, just, how do you know? That's what you think. Just test it. So we talked to a few clients, and they said, they all said, no worries, change it. So test.
Totally. And obviously our team prior to Will came with a really good portfolio, and clients jumped ship from where we previously were with us. So they already trust us. They knew we were going to deliver. Yeah. And our portfolio over the last 7 years has just grown and diversified so much that once we show that to clients, and we have a very direct marketing approach with clients, obviously once they approach us, we can show them our work, right? And that fills confidence instantly.
Yeah. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yeah, because it's a thing we love doing. Categorically. Because remember, that was our philosophy. Do the things we love doing. Now, do I think that there are other industries to make significantly more money in, product-based, software-based? Absolutely. But I want to be able to enjoy every day and laugh out loud at least 5 to 10 times every day. And that's a successful day to me, right? We do what we love. We're very people-based. We're inspired by strong thinking and excellent creativity. So yes, I would do the same thing again. Speak to me again in 5 years. We'll see. But right now, I don't see myself doing anything else. That's for sure.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
I think the most stressful was always the decision to commit to something. And the biggest thing for us is, because we're service-based and our overhead is the staff and the team, it was finding the courage to commit early on to bringing in people and not umming and ahhing. I recall now our production director wanting to hire her, and she had an excellent reputation. And I ummed and ahed, and I should have done that significantly faster. And just having the courage to bring in those really strong people, because they will make the work better, and that in turn brings in more. So just having the courage to hire, but that was the hardest thing for me to do, because you look at another big overhead coming in. But the simple idea of trust and believe that if these are truly great people, they will bring in extra revenue. The same with our creative director, who's now our executive creative director, our director of client services, all of those things. Just needing the courage, that I think is the biggest struggle for me, building that up.
Yeah. Yep. Been there before. It's scary, that next plateau you need to jump up to, because obviously wages are ahead of that curve before the billables come in.
Yeah.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
For me, stepping out of the minutiae. So really stepping back, having more of a big picture view, that I am not focused on the delivery of the work. And we've all heard the cliche of, work on the business, not in the business. That's incredibly hard to achieve. But for me, the area of growth was to accept that I'm actually running a company. and to not feel like a complete imposter, which, to be clear, I still feel I do have at times. But that was the biggest area of growth for me personally, to let go of the things that are day-to-day deliverable and focus on where the business needs to go and how we attract new business.
That imposter syndrome is a lot more common in small business owners that I think a lot of people believe is there. It's, quite a few guests actually mentioned that.
Yeah, and it's only logical, right? Because I'm a trained brand and campaign marketing strategist. That's what I had my whole career, and that's sort of what I built up my confidence around. And then you start an agency, and then you realize somebody's got to run it. Now we do have a fractional CFO, which was an amazing thing to do, and I highly recommend everybody does that.
So that's like part-time. They're like 2 days a week, very senior in finance, but yeah.
Exactly. Like supremely senior. Our CFO has been the CFO for many a big agency and now went into that model of being a fractional CFO. And she has helped us tremendously. I trust her fully. She has a phenomenal bookkeeper so that I'm not wrapping my head around those kind of things. Obviously, I do need to be more familiar with numbers now. And more so. But that is something that I realized the moment we did that. And we did that from day one.
Yeah.
And she, just the more time she needs to take up, the more she bills us. So it's a very good business model for her and as for us.
That's great. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
The stress of continuously having to bring in new business to keep the ship afloat.
Yep.
That is the hardest because we're a project-based industry, and in the agency world, the idea of retainers are less and less. We do still have them, but you're always wanting to bring in that next project. So chasing new business is definitely the hardest piece.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
The growth that you see in the people that are in it and the joy. We just last week had a little recap of the last 2 years with the team and just the amount of pride that we can collectively feel because we are a creative collaboration, right? Everything we do here is we create with collaborate with one another, collaborate with external partners, and then obviously with our clients. Everything we do here is due to us, right? And I think that just brings an immense amount of pride in seeing that growth and skill set within the team, and that they can feel that Will is equally theirs as it is Nick and I, because that's truly how we feel.
Yep. What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Simply believing and trusting that everything will be okay. And I am somebody who comes with a very strong work ethic, just how I was brought up, which has bode me incredibly well. But at the same time, initially when we started Will, I just thought the more I work, the more successful we'll be.
Yep.
And there's a great fallacy in that, right? I even had this term, and I spoke on another podcast about this, where I thought, well, I'm not an entrepreneur because that title just completely intimidates me, but I'm just somebody who works really, really hard. And that is completely fatalistic because you will work yourself into the ground and there'll only be marginal actually uptake and increase from that. Yep. So the biggest thing that I've learned, and equally the biggest mistake, is it's not about leaning in 100% on absolutely everything because it breaks your entire world around you down.
Absolutely.
Right?
That hustle mentality or culture that kind of, I'd say, Gary Vee kind of championed that in the 2000s, the late 2000s, the wine guy. I just don't buy into that these days. That was very much what I did early on as well. Worked 100-hour weeks, slept under my desk sometimes when I started 2 tech companies, but it's just, it's a broken model. It's not going to work, doesn't scale.
No, it doesn't scale, and it absolutely doesn't. And also what it does is you're too focused on work, and the rest of that wheel of life collapses.
Yes.
And then after a while, you realize you're not being fueled in all areas of life. And at that point, you've probably lost a lot of it already.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I think the habit of empowering those around you at all times. Because ultimately you can't be, especially if you want growth and are experiencing it, you can't hold all the strings, right? You can't do all of that. And there are others that are better than you. Mm-hmm. And accepting that and developing that habit of kind of going, no, that person is better. And certainly when it comes to writing strategists, our strategists here are better at it now because even in the last 7 years, I've only had to write a handful of them. So they are better than that. Now, that doesn't mean I can't be a sounding board for them around a big concept or a thought, of course. But they are now better at it than I am. And just that sense of empowerment is an amazing habit. And in the habit of realizing for me that my role is here to support the team, hear them out and respond to that, and identify where the opportunities lie and try to collectively devise the pathways forward, right? Because we will at all time try to embrace that unknown and really deliver inspiration for the team. And then importantly, champion clarity for the team in terms of where we're going, but equally for the clients and their projects, and ultimately for the consumers they wish to achieve, right? They want that same inspiration from the brand and the clarity from the brand. So sort of something that scale, if we act in that way internally within Will, it translates through to the clients, which eventually trickles through to their brands and then their consumers.
Yeah.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. GrowASmallBusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
In terms of what we've done with the team?
Yeah, adding people to the team, yeah.
Yeah, I think don't be afraid to do so. What we've also learned is test out having people on contract to see whether you can actually financially sustain that. I think the biggest part and freelancers that we can fortunately do that. Working a lot with people, with freelancers does mean that it's more taxing on the team because they're constantly briefing them, etc. But we have created this wonderful network of sort of Will freelancers, who I think are Willers, sort of honorary Willers, that we always have sort of first access to and have stuck with us for a number of years and just want to retain their sense of independence and showing flexibility with that. But now we're also at the point where we do need to bring on additional hires, especially because of the growth that we've experienced in the last 2 years. And I think the way of really attracting them, I think we have become known for our culture. That is certainly something that we hear about again and again when people approach us to work with us. And the way that we keep that culture alive is allowing everybody to truly be themselves.
Yep.
And Nick and I model that in terms of, all of the outrageous things we might say, the vulnerabilities we feel, being open and transparent with that, then it allows others to truly be themselves and express their sort of unique personalities and points of view. And then they can have that real sense of family connection and just feel support throughout and have a lot of fun together.
Yep.
It's Nick and my responsibility to ensure we're fueling fun, right? So yes, there is the party committee. And yes, we put a significant budget against that every year in terms of all the different cultural touch points that we have. Sharing work, what each other does is so, so important, shows and shares, right? On all sides, on all fronts, not just the creative side, on the strategy side, and also how we do new business, etc. But culture is critical in terms of.
That was the next question. Anything else you'd recommend to help building a sustainable and kick-ass culture?
Transparency. Yep. In terms of sharing what you're doing, even more so important, obviously, now that we have more of a hybrid working model. For our perspective, however, we have not gone to a complete work from home model. We have a minimum of 2 days a week that we want everybody to come into the office, because that to us is there's no replacement for the actual transfer of energy between humans, which can't happen through a screen. Yep. So that's really important to us. Last week, Friday, we had just about everybody in the office for a day where I think maybe we clocked half an hour billable time, but it doesn't matter because we just all had so much fun together. And I think that idea of we will always insist, other than those that have moved out and are exceptionally talented, as everybody is at Will, but if they really want to live on Vancouver Island or in Whistler or in Pemberton, we can of course accommodate that. But we do ask them for key things to please come into the office, and otherwise everybody else should be in here for 2 days a week. And actually, a lot of people have come back on a 4-day, some even 5-day basis, because that human connection is missing. And maybe that's more so required in the creative world, but I would argue that you could also be an accounting firm and it will bode you well.
Yeah. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Initially, atrociously. So Troy, initially there was zero balance at all, and that cost me very much in my private life. And I now achieve that by really trying very hard, although I'm not going to lie, I suck at it, trying very hard to stay away from emails, text messages, etc. in the evenings. But I put what fuels me in life. I am the, ultimate extrovert. So I am completely inspired by my circle of friends. And I do plan many social things every week. And that might for some be extremely exhausting, but that's actually what recharges me. And that's sort of really important to me. Investing heavily into, my co-parenting relationship and also my daughter is really, really important. And that's how I achieve the balance. And critically, again, that empowerment thing, I don't need to do it all because I'm actually not good at doing it all. And that realization is liberating.
Yeah. How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
I only started to do that too late. I've always been a avid reader, and that is still my biggest source of inspiration. And I joined a CEO forum about maybe 4 years ago. I took a little bit of a break during COVID because I didn't want all of that Zoom time, but I'm back in it again. And that professional development actually comes more with personal development. And that's where I find where I become a better leader is when I understand what inspires me for me in turn to inspire others, right? And it's not about being a better leader, it's about being an inspiring leader. And where are my innate strengths in terms of where I can inspire? And uncovering that has been the biggest professional development I could have done. I'm also a huge believer in counseling. And just doing that regular check-in with your counseling, kind of going, how do I achieve the balance? How do I become the best version of myself? Because that translates back into work. And otherwise, just reading a ton and podcasts, of course, like yourself, but reading a ton.
Great. Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
I have, and they've been organic. So, and some where I just tap into for just a word of sort of advice here or there, or just a little bit of a moment of empathy and a moment of kind of listening and kind of going, I went through all of those same things. And some are really short interactions and some even on the client side. So clients that have become close to me where I can be very honest with them and kind of go, so tell me how I can improve because you kind of see me in action at all times. And then I have a strong business partner, right, who I know intimately very, very well. We can be completely honest with each other and keep each other in check. And that helps too. And not to underestimate just your personal network of other people who run businesses. The moment you open up to them, whether it's the imposter syndrome or an issue that you might have on whether it's finances, HR, or whatever it might be, everyone has experienced the same problem. So my biggest way of sort of, and I do have, people that I will specifically reach out to, and the CEO forum has been great for that too.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
No, we don't. No, but what we do have is we have a leadership team of a group of people sort of, in management, just under, I don't like using the term underneath because we're really all on the same level here. But we have every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have very quick sprints, half an hour from 9 till 9:30, where we run everything by each other. And table any big issues. So we don't have a board of directors, but we like sort of governing from within. And that really helps us. And that helps us also empower the others to take on certain changes that we want to do within Will. And ultimately, they will be the people, they and others as they come up that will be running Will eventually.
All right, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
The hardest thing is just building up confidence that you can do it at the beginning because you have nothing to work off.
Yeah, no.
Especially if it's your first one. And then the first, maybe 3 years are absolutely the hardest because you're trying to implement systems, get the right people in place, and deliver the work.
Yeah.
And then once that's over, then you can kind of find your stride. And the hardest thing is just believing that you'll get through it and creating a sense of distance to it so it doesn't become your entire world.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Factfulness. I love that book. Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
It's phenomenal. Okay, please, Troy, buy it.
The show notes. Yeah,
it's phenomenal. I actually came across it because I tend to follow what Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, all of these amazing humans, have these 10 best books they've ever read. And then every year they update them, right? And this was both on Barack Obama's and Bill Clinton's list, and it's called Factfulness. And they both said one of the most important books they've ever read. And what it really did for me is that I'm already have a positive predisposition on life. I'm fortunate like that. But what it made me realize is that the world is better than we think it is. And we always have that, we recalibrate that innate, distorted and dramatic view that this is the worst time that the world has ever been in and it's only getting worse.
But that's not factually true.
Not factually true, right? So what it does, it gives you certain ways of viewing the world to kind of see that it offers solutions in overcoming that sort of innate sense of the dramatic with more facts.
Yep.
And when you look at these facts objectively, in the same way that I am incredibly optimistic that we will get through COVID with flying colors.
Yeah.
Because the past has proven we will do so. The same with the environmental crisis. And it's an incredibly inspiring book. And what it did for me is, even if I look at the facts and figures around Will, that have a certain amount of distance to them. Don't get caught up in them. See the bigger picture. And we have a philosophy at Will that we call informed intuition. Be informed, look at the data on our client work, our own work, but don't forget about your intuition. Let the gut shine in all of this, because that's when the magic happens in terms of creative solutions coming out, in terms of how we run the business and also how we help clients brand and market themselves.
Great. I've just added that to my my book list. Oh, any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
It's predominantly books for me and people, books and people.
Yep.
So just speaking with people is more invaluable to me. And also the time. And of course, podcasts are super inspiring, but I always need to alternate it with something that isn't work.
Yes.
So I'll read one book around work and listen to something on some podcast, but the next one needs to just be completely light, bring the levity in, because then I can absorb the next round of having to learn something.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I would say one tool, and I'm going to bring it back to people, is, if you can, try and build a support leadership team as quickly as possible. That's the biggest tool we had, because then all of a sudden the pressure is dispersed. And that also means that we can, it's not all sort of sitting with yourself. You empower others, and hence you can grow.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Believe, simply trust, because it is going to work out. Work hard with a certain distance towards all of it, but just believe. And if the work's good, the rest will follow. Simply believe.
Yeah, thanks for your time. I think the audience got a lot of value out of what you shared with us. Terrific journey. You and Nick starting two FTE, now around 30 after 7 years, but with some freelancers thrown in there as well. So congratulations to you both and the wider team. Thank you very much, Troy. Thanks for having me here. And for our audience, we would greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.